Welcome back everyone to Angela's Craft Room. Today I've got another card for you using the Stippled Blossoms stamp set, and even though this is a retired stamp set, as of at the moment it's 2017 and it is a retired stamp set, I really have found using it, I've found you can do so many different techniques. So I'm bringing to you a very easy card today. So this is the card that I've done, and what I've done is I've used the detailed stamp as a background stamp and then just topped it on the top with a sentiment. So I thought I'd share that with you, and then I've just carried it through to the image inside the card as well. So let's get started. So today, to start with, I'm using pink pirouette. So that is my normal 11 inches long by 4 1/8 inch wide, and then scored at 5.5 inches. And then I'm using a piece of rose red on top of there, and that measures 5 1/4 by 3 7/8. Okay, so when I'm working out my mats, I just go down by 1/4 inch for each mat. So, and then the one that I'm going to be stamping on is just gone down by another 1/4 inch on there. And then I just have a scrap piece of pink pirouette, and I've embossed that with the Petal Burst embossing folder from Stamping Up, just to add a bit of interest to your card. And then also with the rose red, I've embossed a small piece of that with the embossing folder Petal Burst. And then I've got a lovely sentiment from an Australian company called Kazaz, and they have some absolutely beautiful sentiments, and it's more of a verse than anything, but I wanted to have that on there. And then I've got a piece of Very Vanilla just to go inside the card. So to start with, we'll just pop our rose red straight on, and I'm just going to use, for quickness today, I'm just going to use Snail Runner from Stamping Up. Just have to make sure. So I'll just bring in a piece of grid paper just so that I can line that up, just to any of the grid lines. It's mainly just to make sure that it's straight. So that's on there like that. And then that is the piece we're going to stamp on. So we'll do that next. Now what I'm going to be using is, I'm actually going to be using one of my Distress Ink stamp sets. Stamp pads, I should say. And what I've started to do with this detailed stamp, I've started by doing combinations and working out what works when I'm using my Distress Ink pads. because I'm finding they're very good. I use the one, just the little 1 centimetre, which I'll show you in a minute, ink pads. Here's one here. So they're very good for that. But you've just got to, with this 2-step stamping, you've got to work out what colours go with what when you're using the distress ink. So it's a good idea just to do it on a scrap piece of paper, and then when you find some combinations that you like, that I have here, you just I just write them down, what the recipe of which ones I've used. And then this is one that I've used on an actual card. So the big flower I stamped fossil amber, and then I used mustard seed, but I stamped it off twice. And then the little flowers were ground espresso and antique linen, and those leaves there, they were bundled sage and forest moss. And then recently I've done another one that I found this was a really good combination. The little flowers of festive berries and tattered rose, and then the leaves are cracked pistachio with pine needles, and then the big flower was ripe cinnamon, and then I used dried marigold stamped off just the once. So it's, you know, it's really good to keep those like that, so that when you're looking for a combination to use when you want to make a card, you're not spending a lot of time. I find with this 2-step stamping, the most thing that takes me a lot of time is working out what colours go with what. So that's why I've started doing this, and I just have a little CD case from Stampin' Up, and I just keep them in there, and they're always on hand for me. So that's just a bit of a tip for you. So we're going to stamp it in one of the pink colours. So let me grab that. So we're going to use picked raspberry. So that's the little ink pad. So we're just going to take that off. Now I usually do use the Misty, but in this case I'm just using the detailed stamp, so I need to use, because I'm doing it as a background, I need to use an acrylic block. So this is the flower, the detailed one. That's the only one I'm using for the background stamp. So I just stamp it up, and there's no right or wrong way how I'm going to do this background. Of the flowers don't have to be faced in any particular way. But what I do like to do is I do like to stamp, not re-ink every time. Then I'm going to put one down in this corner. You just have to make sure, be very careful that you don't block yourself in, so that you can do that entire background stamp. So you can see that I'm just going round. Now I do two sides like that, and then I'm going to just put a stamp right in there. Stamp that up again. And I think this is just such a beautiful pink. So I might even come in there and then just do a lighter one in there. So you don't want to go around all four sides and then try and do the middle, because you're going to block yourself in. Then I might just so we'll just stamp it up. There's probably just another couple of times and we'll be finished. So there we go. So I just think it's so effective. There is a little bit of white space there if you want to just in the corners without stamping up any, adding any more ink. So now that's your background stamp. So we're going to pop that onto there like that. So we'll just get our snail. But this is just such an easy stamp, easy card to do, and you could use any stamp. It doesn't have to be a background stamp. This definitely isn't a background stamp. It's just another technique that you can use with your stamps. And I have done a few tutorials on this set just to show you what you can use, how you can use it, because it's good to use one stamp set but use it in so many different ways using different techniques. So I think I'm just going to pop that across there. So I'm just going to use my grid lines just to so I know that's going to be straight. And then I'm just going to pop my petal bursts in rose red. Now because the sentiment's so large, I didn't want to put a whole piece under there, so I'm just going to have it sort of like that. So we'll just adhere that piece of rose red about there. And then I'm going to use some dimensionals. It just gives it a little bit of a rose red going round there like that. So we're just going to use some dimensionals on there. One on each corner. Just in there like that. Just grab my tweezers. What I like to do with the dimensionals is just give them a little press in the middle, and then that helps lift them off. But it is a good idea to do that, like I showed you those when I work out a good colour combination, I just make it up on a card and keep it in that little CD case, because it saves so much time when you want to go and make a card and you've already got the ones that you know worked last time. So we're just going to pop this press down on the dimensionals. So it's quite a lovely card, and it's got such a beautiful sentiment. And then we just need to do the piece for inside, and you don't want to overdo it when you're stamping the inside. I am going to do a video for you on how I decorate an envelope when I'm doing a full-on project. When I'm doing a full-on project and I decorate the envelope, plus I do quite a detailed stamping inside. So I'm going to come back and do a tutorial, and I will use this stamp set to do that. So that's the inside. So we're just going to add some snail to that. But all these videos that I do, you don't have to use the stamp that I'm actually using. I'm just showing you different techniques that you can use your stamps that you've got in your stash there at home and get the same effects. So we're just going to pop that one in there. Just like that, and that's our card finished. So this was the first one that I did just a little sentiment, so it showed a lot more of the background stamp, and I added some ribbon and a few rhinestones and pearls. And then this time I've used a lot bigger sentiment with a little bit of colour behind the sentiment there, and a bit of more layers on this one, so that you're showing different textures on your card. So I hope you find that useful, and I hope you'll give those techniques a try. And until next time, happy crafting!